I'll be right back on. I'll be back in just 1 second.
No worries.
There we go.
There we go. So we are live on YouTube, but I don't think we're going live on Facebook because the Facebook thing's not working. So we got to get this thing recorded so we can upload it to the system for people. Fantastic. Welcome. How's everybody doing? Good to see you. How was Disney?
It was nice. It was really nice. Like five days of running around. So definitely got my steps in and then some.
Nice. Oh, how you doing, Julie?
I'm so good. How are you?
Good.
I remember those Disney days. Yeah, Doug, I remember those Disney days.
Yeah, definitely fun, right?
Yes.
My Disney days are coming. My Disney days are coming.
Yes, your Disney dates are coming.
Oh, today's class, we're going to be talking, it's Insights to Your Genius. So for those of you that are watching the recording or watching this live, every month we have two different modules that we do in the Professional Development Network on a regular basis. One is called Getting Inside Their Heads. And the idea is to be able to understand other people's perspectives. We run that one, it gets uploaded into the learning platform. The other one that we have is called Insights to Your Genius. There's a class that is a foundation course, Insights to Your Genius, but this is a continuing education piece. And every time we run one of these, it gets added into that module in our learning platform. So if you guys ever want to go back and watch the replays, there's the foundation courses set up, and then there's going to be other courses added in within that product. So if you guys ever want, you guys all have access to it. So Doug and Julie, you guys have access to that. I can send that info over to you, but that's something that as part of the Professional Development Network, you get access to. It's an ever-growing course, not an evergreen, an ever-growing. That's one of my favorite pieces about it. So Insights to Your Genius, the idea is to help you understand you. We talk about the spectrums of behavior. We talk about the different ways that people operate, the ways that people function. And today what we're going to be focused on is we're going to be focusing on the DISC assessment, primarily on the DISC assessment. We're looking at the D and the C. So today's discussion is really focused on results. So results is the end item that it is that you're trying to create. Results are they're lag measure. It's something that you put in a bunch of action, and whatever happens at the end is a result. You don't really control the result, but there's a thing at the end that is called a result. I'm working with certain personality types. Now, the first thing that I need to do is I need to dissuade what a lot of people think. Most people who have studied or have heard the DISC, especially those who have studied with some of the great coaches that are out there, love to think that the high Ds are results focused and they're the only ones who care about results, and it's not true. High D likes to move forward quickly, and their focus is getting to the result quicker. I want to put an emphasis on this because getting to the result quicker doesn't necessarily mean it's a good result. Remember, a result is just what happens after you do stuff. So getting to the result quicker, the same thing like a high D is going to move fast to get to a result. The high D, I have this conversation all the time. They're like, yeah, but what happens if you hit a brick wall? And the high D looks over and goes, then we learn quicker. Yeah. New direction.
Hit it.
Right? It's like, I'd rather hit the wall and find out I'm going the wrong way sooner so that I can turn around and go the other direction. And the people who have a low D personality look at them and they go, why the hell don't you just not hit the wall? Like, just don't hit the wall. They're like, no, because they can't stop. So
it's like
when you
fire, ready, aim.
Yep.
Fire, ready, aim. Which is me a lot. So
the high D personality is incredible, but the thing is that the high D isn't the only category that's focused and driven for results. In fact, the C is also focused on results. The difference between the high D and the high C, a lot of times the people who teach, this is the other piece that I hate, is that the people who teach DISC are DI personality types, high D, high I personality types, and they talk about all the other personality types from their perspective. So the high D looks over the C and they go, they don't care about results, all they care about is process, and they keep lagging us. Why? Because they're trying to move forward quickly and the C's are slowing them down. But realistically, the high C cares more about results. They care about quality results. They want predictable results. They want guaranteed outcomes. So people talk about a high C being process driven. That's not true. They are process driven because a process is supposed to produce a predictable result. That's why they want the process. That's why they want proof that it's worked before. That's why they want to know what's been done in the past. They're not trying to throw in roadblocks. They just want to make sure whatever result we get, it's what we intend and it's a good result. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And so you get the high C personality type and the high D personality type. And the reason why they butt heads all the time is because they both are focused on the same thing, but they don't realize they're focused on the same thing. The high C is focused on a quality result, and they look over at the D and go, they just want to keep moving, and they really don't care if it gets a good result or not. They just want to hit a wall. I don't understand why they're doing that. And the C looks over, or the D looks over at the C and goes, they're slowing everything down, red tape after red tape. Why the hell don't they just get out of the way so that we can get results? And they're both focused on results, but they're not seeing it from the other person's perspective. Does that make sense?
Yes, I'm sorry, I'm smiling a lot. It reminds me of a conversation my wife and I had earlier this week where we specifically called that out. Like, I am very much D, and I wouldn't necessarily say she's C. Well, maybe she is. We have to figure that out. But she was definitely more interested in the process. And after a long conversation, we realized we're both trying to get to the same place. So that's why I'm smiling a lot. It's kind of hitting hard today.
Well, here's the thing. Was she focused on process, which is what you're saying, or was she focused on a quality outcome and wants to make sure that whatever you do, you're going to get the right result?
It was a quality outcome.
Yeah. I see. But what you just said, I mean, it's so funny because even when we know it, we still go, they're focused on the process. No, the process is a means of getting results. It's like, oh no, he's just focused on movement. No, I want to get results. No, you're just focused on moving. It doesn't really matter if you're getting results or not. You just care about moving. Wait a minute. No. Same concept, but this is why they struggle. So the D category, the high is focused on getting results quickly. The low D is also focused on results. The low D is deliberate and wants to move forward intentionally towards their results. They want to plot and plan. They want to make sure they have enough information that they're moving forward the way they want to. The low D is also focused on results. The low C, they're also focused on results. They're focused on creative application to be able to get the result. What do we need to do to get there? I don't know. Let's figure it out. Well, that didn't work. Fuck it. Let's change it. So that hits all the different categories, the high D, low D, high C, low C. The outside of the DISC model are focused on results. So the people who have a high D, high C, they're what's affectionately known in the DISC community as a dick. They are the angry, accurate assholes because they're moving forward quickly and they know exactly how it needs to be done and they don't mind telling you how it needs to be done. And the reason why they're seen that way, if you have a high D, low I, low S, high C, is the IS personality. Those two traits are focused on experience. The I is the experience of the individual, and the S is focused on the expression of experience. We're not getting into that today. We may get into that next month, but we're focused on results. But you see that DC personality type, there are results. And it's like, what about the experience? It's like, no, we've got these two high bars that are driving us towards results. ID low C personality type. We're just combining them at this point. So you have a high D and a low C personality type, someone who wants to move forward quickly, focuses on results, and doesn't mind doing hard left turns if they need to, because they're going to figure out some way over. Have you guys ever heard the expression over, around, under, or through? We're going to get there. Have you guys heard that kind of a thing before? Yeah. That is a low C. That's a low C phrase. That is a low C phrase. There's a way to do it and go up, over, around, through, whatever. I don't know. We'll figure it out. That's the low C. They're not set on doing it a certain way. What they're looking for is efficiency. They're looking for creativity. They're looking for movement. They're going, okay, so if this doesn't work, then what? They're the then what people. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
The problem is that they're so programmed for it, they can't follow process. Because even if I want to follow a process, right, but this new priority came in and now it doesn't fit in the process, and I know the process so well and it doesn't fit, so then I can't use the process. So the process goes away. Does that make sense?
Yes. So I have a quick question about the high D. So if they hit a wall in your experience, so the high D hits a wall, do they still go back with the same process and just, it's still a quick movement of a goal they're trying to reach, and they'll just hit a wall again? They just keep going until it's done?
It depends on how they run. A lot of high Ds, what they'll do is they'll hit a wall and they go, okay, regroup, where are we headed? Cool, let's go. And they run. So they stop for a second, they pause, but not always. Some of them bounce off the wall, they do a kick flip and then turn and run the other direction. They don't stop. Have you ever seen parkour?
Of course.
Whenever you see parkour, I want you to think of high D. High D is parkour. It's like,
Okay.
what the hell just happened? I don't know. They're a high D. Fuck it.
Yeah, that's a good analogy.
Yeah, that is.
There is nothing that stops those people from moving. That's the high D. That's really what it is. I think that's now my new high D metaphor. It's the parkour. If you ever see parkour, it's like, yeah, there's a building in front of them. I'm like, that doesn't matter. It's cute, but it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So then how do we look at this for ourselves? So that's kind of understanding the spectrum. So when you're sitting there and you're working on a project, you've got to decide what it is that you want. There are 4 requisites for change, 4 things that are required in order to create lasting success. The first is to let go. You got to let go of where you are in order to get to where you want to go. You got to let go of your baggage, let go of your stuff. There's a whole bunch of stuff that you've got to let go of in order to move forward. The second thing is you got to get clear on what it is that you want. You got to set an intention. It's a direction to move. You then need to take action, which builds momentums towards the achievement of that goal. And then you have to stay focused on the goal, which lets you know if you're on track or if you're going off. These are the 4 requisites for change as taught in the NLP world. But I want to talk about them in respects to DISC. Letting go is the law of sacrifice. What are you willing to give up in order to get the results? So when you're a high D personality type and you're focused on results and wanting to move forward, that high D, you've got to be willing to recognize, what are you going to give up? You may give up relationships because you're pushing too hard, running people over. You may give up your desire to drive in order to have a positive relationship. So like, for instance, if you're working in Doug, you brought up relationship. Let's talk relationship. If you've got a partner who's a low D and you're a high D and you want to keep driving, sometimes the best results you can get is by not moving and slowing down.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's uncomfortable. I know. But if I know what results I want, that's why you have to get clear on the results you want and what am I going to give up. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
To compromise.
Huh?
It's always a compromise.
No, it's never a compromise. It is never a compromise. A compromise is you lose, I lose. It's not the way I look at it.
Okay.
I have priorities and I decide what I want. A compromise is you lose, I lose. I decide what I want and what I'm willing to sacrifice, and I look at my priorities. If I compromise, it means I'm giving up my priority. If I sacrifice, then that means I'm choosing which priorities are the most important to me. It's a very fine distinction, but it's a very powerful difference between a compromise and a sacrifice.
Well said.
It is a powerful distinction. There's a powerful distinction between those two, because in a compromise, it means if you give this up, I'll give this up, and then we'll both not be happy. It's like, just from a mental perspective, just the way that word is constantly used, it means you give up some of what you want, I'll give up some of what I want, and then we'll both not and then we can agree that that's okay.
And you just feel like you're maybe left with a little bit of resentment. It's such a different way to look at it. A sacrifice instead of a compromise. Yeah.
In order to understand results, which is the focus of the day, I guess we're going to go more in depth into the law of sacrifice today, because that seems to be an important concept. The law of sacrifice is built around the concept that energy cannot be created or destroyed. It is simply transferred from one form to another. If something cannot be created or destroyed, that means in order to create, something else must be removed. Just very simply, if you cannot create anything, because energy can't be created or destroyed, it means the energy has to transfer from one to the other, which means one thing is not going to get the energy and the other thing is going to get the energy, and that's the only way to create it. Does that make sense?
Yes.
It's a very different way to look at it, but that's what the law of sacrifice says, is that if you want to create something, you're going to have to give some stuff up in order to create it. Julie, we've talked quite a bit since the last class where I talked about habits. And it's like you're building a habit of not doing it, and you're going to give up building the habit of not doing it so you can build the habit of doing it. It's like it's either one side or the other. It's the same concept. You have to give something up. The problem is that we program ourselves. I'm not giving something up. I'm creating something. No, you're giving up the not the thing. So if you want a clean house, you're giving up a messy house. Well, that's an easy sacrifice. Okay, right. But then you're also giving up your time. You're giving up your energy. You're giving up the excuse not to have people over to your house. I don't know if any of you guys have ever had that before, where it's like, my house is a mess. I didn't invite anybody over. Realistically, I'm keeping my house a mess so that nobody can come over, because I kind of want to isolate right now. Doug's smiling. He's like, yes, I know that trick.
And on both sides of that, for sure.
So then you're working in and getting clear on what it is that you want. But once you go, this is what I want. I'm doing this right now with finances. I'm listing out all the things I got to spend money on. It's the same thing with time. You list out all the things you're going to spend time on. You cannot spend the same dollar on two things. You cannot spend the same minute on two things. I can listen to music and work. Different auditory processing. You can't listen to music and something else at the same time. Well, I can. And people with ADD have a unique ability to do that, but that's beside the fact. But you guys get my point, right? That idea, that concept, that it's like you're just simply choosing priority at that point. The law of sacrifice is this thing is important, and it goes, right, but you can't have this and this. They're in conflict. So which one is a higher priority? Because you have to give one of them up. And most of the time, we're not conscious of those decisions. Where resentment that you talked about comes into play is because the results that we want to create, we have unwilling sacrifices that need to be made. And that's where self-sabotage comes into play, because we don't want to make those sacrifices so we don't get the results we're looking for. Or we're not prepared for it, or we build resentment because somebody else is making us make a sacrifice that we didn't want to make. We just want the result. So I want a six-pack of abs, but I don't want to work out. It's going to be an expensive surgery every 6 weeks.
So let me ask you this, Alex, about going back to like a relationship. So you're saying it's the law of sacrifice. You know, you have to kind of see it that way. But what if the end result isn't what you wanted? So you're just saying, okay, well, we've come to an agreement. Let's like, just say you're going on vacation. You're going on vacation and you're not digging, hitting the same spot. You're like, I don't really want to go there, but he wants to go there. She wants to go there. And you look at it as a law of sacrifice. And then the next trip comes around and again, it's on the table. And then you pick, again, it's a law of sacrifice because you go where then they want to go. What is the buildup of that? What's left with what you're saying, looking at it as just a law of sacrifice, not compromise, because take compromise out of it, but still deciding exactly what it is that you want. So I just am wondering.
Okay, so in this example, it's a really good example. So vacation 1, I go to her place. Vacation 2, I go to her place. Vacation 3, I'm now starting to build resentment because we keep going to her place and not my place. So now I get to choose going to her place and building resentment, or drawing a boundary and going to my place. Okay, well, it's not that much resentment, and the relationship is going to have this. So now I still have to choose my priority. Is my priority to go and deal with my baggage of resentment, or is the place really important to me? Okay, the next time, now it's the next vacation. Now I'm going, this is a pattern. Now I'm getting pissed off. Now I'm getting frustrated. Now I'm going, okay, hold on. I made this sacrifice every time. You can't look at them and say, I made this sacrifice. It's your turn. That's not the law of sacrifice. That's not owning it. You know, I've made the sacrifice and I'm not able to, because now it's a different sacrifice. Now it's not his place or my place. Now it's his place plus resentment, plus anger, plus frustration versus my place. The his place has now taken a lower priority because it has all this other stuff stacked on it.
So you're saying you don't even put resentment in it. By the time you get to the third, vacation or choice, then it's just basically a choice. You're not going to go in the resentment area. You're just going to say, hey, you know what?
You get to look at it, though. You get to look at it because there are people who on the first vacation, if I go to your place, I'm going to resent you for making me not get to go where I want to go. There are people who I really don't care where I go. I have this idea. I'm like, oh, let's go to the Bahamas. It's like, no, let's go to Ohio. And I'm like, okay. And they're like, it's like, no, I want the sun. I want this stuff. I'm like, I don't care. I want to be with you. I really don't care where we go. Like, I have no preference. Like, I have places I want to go, but I'm totally willing to sacrifice it, because if I have to choose between going to the place I want to go or them getting what they want, I'd rather have them get what they want. And I just want to be with them. So I really don't care. Yeah. But if I had a different feeling or a different charge on it, then all of a sudden now you have to take the emotions into account when you're looking at the law of sacrifice, because you're adding, because the result is not just where you go. The result is the experience. The result is the impact. The result is everything that comes from the action you take, which goes back to what I said at the beginning. The result is everything that comes from the action you take. So if this is the result you're going to create, then you have to look and go, am I willing to make the sacrifices necessary in order to get there? If you go, you cannot choose to resent the person for making you go because you made the decision. You can resent yourself for not drawing boundaries. You can resent yourself for the actions you didn't take, for saying what you wanted.
It's just a healthy mindset. It really is. It's like,
it puts the power back into you. It puts the power back into your own reality.
Yeah, it feels like freedom.
It is freedom and hell at the exact same time when you realize you're responsible for everything in your world. Because that means everything that's good you helped create, and everything that's not, you helped create. Power is you can also change anything in your world.
So true. I think with growth and experience and a different mindset, things that you would look at, like for me many years ago, I would never even think, stuff just doesn't come in my mind to see things that way. Just have such a healthy approach to most everything.
It is. It's empowering. It's kind of like the emotions kind of melt away. Not the emotions, the resentment. It's like, okay, well, I did make this choice and I can choose whether or not I'm going to do it again, or I'm going to do something different next time. And then when I think of that, it just brings me kind of I settle and I have peace.
Yep.
It's a life feeling.
Emotions, primarily negative emotions. This is not a universal, but I will say it's mostly a universal. Negative emotions derive from resistance to things you don't control.
Agree.
Negative emotions arise from a resistance to things you cannot control. Anger, frustration, irritation. Somebody did something, you didn't control that, and it pissed you off. Anxiety, you don't know the outcome, and because you don't know the outcome, you're worried about it. Again, control.
It's a kind of a fine line. Like when I first typed it down, I wrote negative emotions derive from things you can't control. And it's like, no, then I heard you say a resistance to things you can't control. That's the key.
Yes, resistance is the key. Let me rephrase. I'm actually going to augment it a little bit more. Baggage comes from resistance to that which you can't control. Emotions come as an experience, but they rise and they fall like the wave. The reason they stay is because we resist and we hold on. Guilt, shame. You can't change the past. You did something you regret. You can't control it because you can't change it. That's, again, it's a flavor of control. Every negative emotion derives from a resistance to that which you cannot control. Results are where? Timeline. Past, present, future. Where are results?
Future.
Results are technically in the past. Goals are in the future. We talk about wanting results. We want to get results. We want to get results. No, we want to look back at results. So what we're doing is we're putting our future, what we want to create, in the past and imagining what it's going to feel like once we've done it. Because if you think about it, results don't exist in the future. Results exist in the past. So if you're looking at a result you're wanting to create, what you're doing is you're actually creating higher probability of manipulating your present experience towards the actualization of a future you desire.
Yeah.
Very technical, complicated way of saying you're doing shit now to get somewhere you want to go. So you can look back and said, I was there. I feel like the first one sounded much more elegant, but the next one actually, like,
Alex, how your brain works is just so good.
doing shit now to try and get to where I want to go so I can look back and go, shit, I was there. That's it. That's all you're doing.
That's how you have to coach me. Just plain. Yeah.
I think it's awesome. It's funny, but it's awesome.
Yeah.
So but this is important for a few different reasons. Results exist where? We think results are in the future, but they're not. They're in the past. So if we're focused on results, which is what we want to be focused on in order to create where we're going, we're technically not in the present looking forward. We're in the future looking past. Which is why when you're able to go, okay, so if I want this result, what actions do I need to take? You're imagining having accomplished it and looking at what you did between the now and the result in order to create it and predicting what will create the result. Now, here's a very important question. Do you control everything in your world? Yes or no?
No.
No.
So when you talk about focusing on results, what you're focusing on is a goal and increasing the probability of achieving the goal. I want to change the way you think about results. Results is not a thing. Results is the image at the end that you want to achieve. And you got to stay focused on it and calibrate and go, what's the probability I'm headed that direction, high or low? That's all results are. Results is a probability game. Do you guys want to know what you can control 100%? I did an Instagram on this. You want to know what you can control?
Yes.
Love you, Julie. I love you, Julie. You're really gonna. If I get an FU after this statement, I totally deserve it. The only thing you can control is failing. You sabotage yourself. You don't put in the work. You don't do the thing. You have 100% control on if you fail. If you want to fail, you have 100% success that you can control that. That is the only thing in your life you can control is failing.
So
you can try to succeed and you will either succeed or fail. Probability at that point. That's all it is. It's a probability. But if you want a guarantee of what you can control failure. That's it.
I'm not even mad at
It
that.
does- Huh?
I'm not even mad at that.
But you want to be, don't you? I want to be mad at that.
It's so true. Gosh. Yeah.
So if you shift thinking results are in the future and you're working towards results, and instead results are in the past, you recognize there's something called, so I've got to use some fun technical terms to be able to explain this stuff. And I'm probably using them wrong because I'm making them up as because they're my terms. They're the way I talk. Again, welcome to my world. So we use something called temporal depositioning to create our experience. Temporal depositioning is moving yourself through time cognitively. So you can't be mad about something that hasn't happened. So what you do is you go, if he says this to me, oh my God, I'm going to. If she did that, oh my God, I would. What you're doing is you're taking a future behavior and you're putting it in your past and then looking at it and feeling the anger. So you're using temporal depositioning. You're moving something from the future that's a probability, putting it in your past so that you can feel the emotion related to the thing. So you're ever angry, it's like, oh yeah, if they did that, I'd be pissed. You're imagining it in the past so that you can feel it. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah.
So when you're focused on results, it's the same concept. You're taking a probability in the future and moving it to the past. And then you're analyzing how you feel about it. And what you're feeling is looking at where you are now, present moment, and the future that you're looking back at. And they're either in harmony or they're not in harmony. They're in harmony or dissonance. Vibrationally, I'm now talking music. Harmony or dissonance. It either feels good or it sucks. You know what the difference between the two is? Hope.
Mm.
The higher you perceive the probability of achieving the results you want, the better it feels when you think about the results. The more you need it, the more attached you become, the less probability, the more you focus on the threats as opposed to the opportunity. So instead of focusing on the 95% probability, you get fixated on the 5%, which makes you start to choke it, which then that 5% then becomes 12%, which then becomes 40% that you're going to fail. Because now you're choking it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. It's like you give momentum. It's like momentum too. It's like you don't realize it.
It's slowing down the way that we actually think to make it cognitive, because you're not going to be able to control it, but just to be aware when you start to feel. When you start to feel that frustration that you're not getting where you want to go, what you're really doing is you're imagining getting to the end, the result isn't there, and you're feeling it now, as opposed to feeling, okay, so if I'm going to get there, this is where that low C comes into play. If I'm going to get there, how am I going to get there? And if you can't figure it out, all of a sudden now you feel hopeless. Okay, then tap into the high C. What do we need to put in place to make sure that we get a quality result? It goes, okay, well, I just don't know what to do. Cool. Then tap into the high D and go, then let's just keep moving. Right, but I hit a wall and it hurt. Awesome. Well, then let's slow down and be intentional about how we move forward. Move through the profiles.
Mm.
I hate the disc because you're not one, but if you understand the energy, you can tap into any of them. Know what yours is, because that's where you feel most comfortable, but learn how to visit the others.
Can I ask a question about that?
Yeah, totally.
So I don't want to sidetrack us, and if this is, please say so. But you said a high D and a low D all are looking at results, as are a high C and a low C. So is it fair to say that everyone is concerned about results, or are you saying just the people at the ends of the spectrum are?
Nope, everyone's concerned about results.
Got it.
How they care about results is different. Somebody who goes, I really don't care about results, what they're really saying is that they are not attached to an outcome. Because if it was important to them, it would activate one of those four quadrants.
Okay.
I don't know of anyone who doesn't care about results.
Yeah.
So let's look at the IS personality type just for a brief second. The high I, the social outgoing, they're focused on experience. If you think about it, the results they're looking for are the experience. So then they're either going to be quick moving, high D, high I. They're going to be quick moving to make a good experience. They're going to be intentional about making a good experience, a low D. They're going to have a process or a way that they make sure they build those relationships so it's a good experience, high I, a high C. Or they're going to be creative to be able to maintain those relationships, which is the high I, low C. So you start looking at it and you've got if the experience is the focus, they still tap into those 4 quadrants to figure out how to get there. Does that make sense, Doug?
Yeah. Yeah, that does.
Yeah. So it's not necessarily the primary focus, but those 4 quadrants. And yes, it is. Like everybody operates. That's why I say DISC is they're spectrums. I'm not really teaching what is classical DISC. I'm teaching them as spectrums to understand high and low where they are. So like you're right now in the certification program, you're going through and you're learning how to be able to cold read people in a conversation when I'm talking with somebody, really simply, how they move forward. Are they moving forward intentionally? Or are they moving forward quickly? Where is their focus when it comes time to take a step? Is it cool, let's go? Or I want to make sure I'm doing it right. Easy to tell where on that spectrum they sit in just a short conversation. Do they care about the quality of the outcome, or do they care about just getting there however that we get there? That's the high C or the low C. So now I've got 2 different spectrums. And if I want to cold read someone and they want to move forward quickly and they're creative in how they handle things, I can say, you really have a hard time following processes, even when you want to. And they're like, yeah, how do you know that? Because I've now found that this spectrum includes all of these different flavors. So now I can tell them all about themselves because I know the flavors of this spectrum. You're also aggressive. Sometimes people misinterpret your actions as being aggressive and directed towards them when really you're just focused on wanting to move forward. You're not really mad at them until they say there's a problem. Then they become the problem. They're like, yes, all right, that's because I'm talking to high D and it's a spectrum. And once I know that you're in this circle, I can talk about that circle and it's going to generally describe you. And as long as I'm not specific, if I'm general, I can describe you pretty well up here. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
That also teaches you how to operate with them. It also teaches you how to operate with yourself. One of the important aspects that I really wanted to get into when I talk about results is flexibility. The more you understand all of these different pieces, you can understand where you tap in. If you are a high D and you keep hitting walls and you're not getting your results, you may go, if I want to get results, I got to move quickly and find the right process to follow. Right, but I'm not going to follow the process. Cool. I need to put recovery strategies in place and get myself to follow a process. This is different than what I teach when I teach the authenticity. As a leader, you don't push this to other people. For yourself, you create an environment where you can be successful. Sometimes that's adapting your environment. Other times it's learning how to tap into another energy for a short period to capitalize on its strength so that you can move forward and get through the current trial. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's powerful. It's essential, I think.
As a leader, your people need to be just them. But when you're leading yourself, finding that balance on, okay, so now which one of these, because you have all energy inside of you. You're connected to everything. Every single thing is inside of you. High D, low D. You live in a certain place, but it doesn't mean you can't go visit the other. So then it comes back to that law of sacrifice I was talking about, that low D. I really struggle making a decision because it doesn't feel comfortable. I want to make sure that I'm making the right decision. If you want to operate as a high D, it means you're going to have to let go of knowing it's the right decision, and sometimes letting go of intentionality. You're going to have to go with your gut, and it's not going to feel good. But if you want to operate that way for a short period, then you've got to be willing to let that go. Then you can do it. It also means you have to let go of the judgment, of the recklessness that a lot of the low D see with the high D. It's reckless behavior. You got to let go of the judgment, because if you're going to step in, you won't see your own behavior as reckless. That's not how a high D sees it. So you have to let go of your attachment to something being right or wrong. So if you want results, you got to get clear on what it is that you want, and you got to be flexible in order to get there. So it is both strategic focus and complete surrender. I'm going to control what I can and let go of what I can't, and recognize I can't control anything and everything is in my influence. I think that's one of the most freeing things that I've ever discovered, is that the end result is going to happen and I'll influence it as best I can, but I don't control it. So no matter how good I do, I can't guarantee it's going to go good. And no matter how bad I do, I can't guarantee it's going to suck. And the only thing we can control from a results perspective is failing. And we do that through self-sabotage or through inaction. So today we talked about results. We talked about the high D, high C, low D, low C, and those spectrums and how they approach results from different. We talked about ourselves. We talked about the 4X, and we talked about the law of sacrifice. I'd love to hear any questions you have. What were your biggest takeaways? And what are you going to do with this?
Well, I can say based on, what I had mentioned at the beginning of this is the fire ready aim is kind of my way of doing things, and Susie's very much ready aim fire. So there's opportunities for both of those to exist depending on if we need to achieve something quickly or we have time. And I think each has a place. The ability to slow down sometimes makes perfect sense. And I've even said this, I've said, when I slow down and we spend time on it, we usually get to a better outcome. Sometimes I want to get to an outcome. I mean, that's my reaction. I want to get to an outcome sooner sometimes, regardless of if it's 80% of what it would have been. So anyway, that's kind of a big takeaway for me.
So there's a couple of different pieces. One, slowing down for the high D personality creates anxiety. And the way that you get good at slowing down is to get comfortable feeling it and knowing it's okay to feel it. And the way you get good with slowing down for others is to recognize the same anxiety you have slowing down as what they feel speeding up. And then you let your love and your compassion for another person going, I can carry this. I've practiced carrying this weight, so I'll carry it so you don't have to, because one of you is going to feel the anxiety. The other aspect is when it comes to being able to make decisions quickly and you're a low D, and for those that are watching that are a low D and you need to make a decision quickly, you need to get better at evaluating information efficiently. That's it. There are people who are not actually a high D personality type that act and show up like a high D because they've gotten so efficient in analyzing the information. I don't follow the high D statute of run with my gut. I've probably run 140 scenarios before I make a decision. I just do it quicker than most people follow their gut. So the more efficient you get at analyzing information, the easier it is. And sometimes the other people, they just can't process information as quickly as you. So you need to slow it down so that they can process it and lay it out in order that they understand. You could speed up their decision-making process by making the consumption of information easier for them. Does that make sense, Doug?
Yeah.
I was big with especially in sales and real estate, to be able to break down very complicated things. Like I said, that really long, complicated thing versus I'm doing shit to try and get to where I want to go. It's like, cool, got it. Like you've got to be able that skill allows you to help speed people up. Awesome. Thanks, Doug. Julie, takeaway, insight, action.
Yes, oh my gosh, just so much of what you said, but just the ending of this is like, I'm not yet in a position where I'm leading, I'm being led, but my intent is to get better at analyzing the information. Just 100%, because you know me and you know that it's going to help me make quicker decisions. I'm not going to dissected if it's ready, right, whatever. I just definitely.
So the other piece that makes that easier for you to let go of is when you look at the law of sacrifice. I love this law of sacrifice because it makes everything a little bit easier when you accept that I'm going to give this up. The risk. What am I willing to accept as a risk? You want to make sure it's the right decision. And in a conversation, it goes, if it's not the right decision, you can still change it. Oh, okay. But what if it takes me a little bit longer? Then it takes you an extra month. Are you willing to give up the month so that you can have movement and see where it goes? So you start looking at what are the risks and go, okay, if that risk happens, am I willing to? And then you start looking at the sacrifice again. Because then you don't have to wait all the time making sure it's the perfect decision, because if it's the wrong decision and you have something in place to course correct, you're fine. So it'll help you make decisions quicker and more efficiently. Awesome. Cool. Well, thank you guys for being on. I'm going to be back on in a couple hours for Q&A if anyone's on. If not, then I'll close it down. But thank you guys for being on. Those who are on the network, I look forward to seeing you. You guys will be getting an email. All of you will be getting an email in the next week, like couple of days with April. You guys are going to need to register. There's enough people who are now in the program. I can't send calendar invites out. So you guys are going to need to register for the ones you want to go to. If you register for all of them and don't show up, that's fine. But the calendar invites are going to be tied to registration going forward. So make sure you guys get registered for those. And if you have anything specific you'd like me to cover, hit me up. Shoot me an email, send me a text, something, and we'll talk. Okay?
Great.
Awesome.
Alex,
you,
Take care, guys.
have a great weekend.